All right, here we go. Let's go to Matt. He goes, random question. Did the NHL do enough to promote the Four Nations tourney? The best versus the best tourneys over the years are the absolute best hockey on earth, and the Open last night was electric.
Montreal, what an unbelievable host. I mean, the electricity in that building was just absolutely amazing. And of course, when you put the international global events in the Canadian markets, in the Canadian buildings, you get tremendous, tremendous response. I think at the end of the day, here's the phrase that you should remember. All-Star games, NHL, good night now. We don't need them anymore. What we should do is replace the NHL All-Star Week with international tournaments. Now, this Four Nations thing, I really think it should be a world tournament. I mean, what it should be would be U.S., Canada, Scandinavia, Europe, and maybe the Russian Federation. If those were your four teams in an all-star game with a lot of money on the table, not an all-star game, but an all-star tournament, I think you get hellacious hockey. And what we saw last night, Team Canada versus Sweden, which wound up going to overtime, that was wide open hockey. There were no cheap shots. There were no head blows. There were no penalties. It was end-to-end skating. The Montreal fans just loved it. Now we got USA versus Finland in the second game. But I'd like to see it make it totally global because we've got so many Euro players that have been excluded from this, notably Russians, should be part of this with their own thing, whether or not they're allowed to wear the Russian flag or the Russian uniform because of the Ukraine situation. But I'd like to really see it. Say goodnight now to the All-Star concept, and let's just do a Four Nations tournament with the four combined teams that I proposed. And this drunk sitting behind the penalty box, banging on the glass, watching San Diego Gulls hockey has to say,
good night now, you know. The question, I didn't see the game last night, but the question I have is, when the NHL players are playing in the All-Star game, is it kind of like watching an NBA All-Star game where it's just mostly offense and not a lot of D?
Yeah, don't check me. Don't hit me. Just let me come down and fire a shot on goal.
Right.
That's what the NHL All-Star game has degenerated into, and the NBA game has. Now they're coming up. Pro basketball is going to do something different this weekend that then enthused me. These four different teams in this, quote, mini playoff tournament. That's, you know, I said if I were king, I would have the NBA All-Stars, Team USA versus the world, and have them play an all-star game and put a lot of them, they're paying all these players, all this bonus package, play for that money to be donated to feed the needy in the U.S. That would be special. And I think it'd be a great game to see NBA All-Stars versus the world All-Stars with all this money that's going to be made available to charity. That's what I would do, because I get turned off when you're telling me somebody's playing for $250,000 and guys are making $40 million already.
Well, they're not going to show up unless they're getting paid, man. Show me the money. I could get hurt. You know, it could be the end of my career. They're definitely going to get paid.
Okay, so that's where we are. You're a hockey fan? Agree with me? Let's expand this thing. I think it'd be really, really cool. Next topic.
We'll go here to Carlos. He goes, even the Guardians have a streaming service. The Padres can't even get a TV or streaming deal. Stay losing, little brother.
Well, I mean, the Padres were the first one to jump on board on the concept after they lost their TV contract. I mean, we can all watch Padre baseball. It hasn't been like other markets where you haven't had access to the games. And unfortunately, now I think it's 8 of the teams have gone back to Diamond Sports Group, or what it's now called FanDuel TV, at reduced TV inventory. But the problem is you got the Yankees and you got the Mets and you got the Red Sox and you got the Dodgers who are not going to give up their TV contract money to put it in any type of central pool to fund a group TV revenue thing. I'm not sure how baseball is going to survive this, but the TV contracts end after 2027. And baseball's of the opinion they will have a streaming service and they will have a package that will work for most people, but it may have to exclude maybe the top 4, top 5 teams. But, you know, different markets are different situation. We can see Padre baseball here on cable or on a subscription, but not everybody has joined MLB to try to do it. Now MLB wants to own as much as they can because then they have a template that will work. And the MLB package, for example, the Padres, it's a quality broadcast.
Yeah, but I missed the pregame and postgame shows that they had when Bally was running it. You know, we lost some of our guys, you know, like Sween Dog. But the streaming deal with the Padres, I'm a little confused why some teams have now gone to what is a FanDuel that's running it, and then some are the Padres just not invited, or do the economics don't make sense?
We don't know what the economics Darkers wants to answer that question, but maybe the Padres have loyalty to the commissioner's office, and they were the first one in. They were the first one that lost their TV contract. It cost them terribly, and they're not making anywhere near the amount of money they made under the contract they used to have with the Diamond Sports Group that became Bally. But the 2027 TV contracts expire. I think the landscape is going to be really different on baseball because streaming is growing everywhere. So I think what baseball looks like on television can be very different going to 2028. Next one.
Okay, hey, here's a shout out from your old buddy John Lynch, because Nick Pivetta is today's early win.
Well, early win was a legendary pitcher. He had a lot more age on him, though. You know, he was a great rock solid pitcher for a long, long time. And at the end of his career, he pitched pretty well for the Indians and then the White Sox. Nick Pivetta is 31. He's not the age early win was, but he's rock solid. He does not have much of an injury problem. If you look at the video of his pitching, it's unbelievable. He's got maybe the most wicked sweeper that I've seen from anybody, and he's thrown it without having any physical setbacks, which is amazing. Big strikeout guy. So a good investment. I like the Padres front four. I think they're pretty good. I tried to think outside of the Dodgers. I think the next really solid starting rotation is probably the Philadelphia Phillies. Yeah. And then maybe the Yankees are right there now with the offseason acquisitions the Yankees made. I think the Padres have a really good starting rotation, and there's 8 deep. Now, enjoy it, because somewhere down the road, the Padres are going to have to do something about the payroll, because they cannot be well over the payroll number, because that means a luxury tax, another big luxury tax check has to be written. They don't want to do that. So if they're in the pennant race July 31st, I think they keep all their guys. If they falter during the season, then they probably have to hold a bit of a fire sale, et cetera, because this ownership just does not believe it can go forward and pay a big luxury tax. You know, a couple of years ago, there's a lot of pro Preller people and a lot of Seidler people. 2 years ago, they had to pay a $40 million, had to borrow money to meet payroll and pay the $40 million they owed in the luxury tax, because Peter allowed AJ just to go crazy with the contracts he was giving out. They're trying to reel it back in, but the way they financed this, like I said, you know, they just signed 5 veteran free agents right here at the finish line of the offseason for just a combined total of $8.5 million that counts against this cap right now. But they got deferred payments and they got buyouts, et cetera, if they don't renew these contracts. Pivetta is making $1 million base salary. Next year, I think his number is $14 million. If he stays, he earns 14, then 19. So creative financing. They haven't done anything wrong. They're just shifting some money differently. But I like their big four in the rotation right now.
You know, doesn't it feel like the Dodgers offseason is so distorted reality that even when the Padres make some additions, we think they're going in the opposite direction, you know, because the Dodgers have become Mount Everest of baseball. Yep. So
the Padres are in a better situation right now than they were a week ago today. Yeah. And I don't know if the fans haven't sensed that yet, because they don't know who Pivetta is. And Pivetta was the only veteran starter at Fenway Park last year on a team that force-fed all their kids. The first half of the season, they were terrible. And those kids collectively got better and better. Yes, Pivetta's record was 6-12, but he was in a lot of games and he pitched pretty well. His ERA was not obscene. And he's got his history as being a strikeout guy, doesn't walk a lot of guys. So I think you put him on the mound, surrounded by a better batting order, I think the results would be much more positive than they were at Fenway Park. And he's not a sexy name. And the reason he was out there is nobody wanted to pay him big money and have to give up the draft pick compensation, and because he was a qualifying offer guy, give up the draft pick compensation and lose $500,000 in international signing money. Preller did, because Preller, and it was a move out of desperation. He had to go get another frontline guy. So now he's got a big four that I think is pretty good.
Okay, now hear me out on all this. So you were saying he was giving up a lot of bombs. That was like his problem. He was striking out guys, he was getting guys out, but he gave up home runs. And then you think he's was previously in Fenway, you know, so the guys hitting balls off the monster. There's a lot of opportunities to hit home runs.
Before that, he was in Philadelphia where balls always going out.
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder if that's part of the reason why he rejected the qualifying offers. Maybe he didn't want to play in Fenway anymore. And then he comes to the Padres, which, has the brand of a pitcher's park. But I thought I was reading something that they might be changing the fences at Petco. Have you heard anything about that?
Not recently. I mean,
Okay.
there's been dialogue that we're going to make more adjustments, but I don't think that's in play right now. But your point is valid. But at the end of the day, a lot of it's about economics, and it is kind of odd. Nick Pivetta turned down the qualifying offer of $21 million, and now he signs here where the potential his first year could be $12 million. That's big.
Well, it's kind of like Jerks and Profar last year. They declare free agency and they think they're going to cash in, and then suddenly it's in the middle of February and like, oh my God, where am I going?
Yeah, that's where we are. Thanks for the comment.
Okay, let's keep moving on, and we'll go here to Hector. And he goes, Lee, the Carol Wilson divorce is pretty ugly in Seattle, with Wilson trying to get Pete fired. How mended do you think their relationship is by now?
They seem to, the sentiment around the NFL is that they mended fences. And that, obviously Russell went to Denver and he had some good experiences and then some rocky experiences, and then they cut him loose. But now suddenly, with all these guys that are on the street, it's not as if Russell Wilson, a month ago, I would have said, well, Russell Wilson might be a perfect fit there. But now look at how many more guys are available, led now by Aaron Rodgers. So I no doubt that the Raiders are going to take their time to evaluate, and they can't sign anybody till March 3rd. That's when the free agent window opens. And now I think some of the dimensions of the quarterback they want have changed because of the fact that Chip Kelly's come in as the offensive coordinator, and he wants to run something different, and that means a different style quarterback. So I'll be fascinated just to see. Of all the names that I posted, I think Aaron Rodgers is the right one in terms of being productive immediately, but I don't even know that Aaron Rodgers is a good a fit as Chip Kelly wants. And the other wild card in this whole conversation is maybe they're bold. Maybe they do something really brazen, like trade up to go get Shedeur Sanders or go get Cam Ward at the top of the draft board. And of course, trading to get one or two means you're going to have to pay a steeper price, but they got 10 draft picks. They got $107 million in cap space, and they got a lot of young players. So it's going to be fun. It's not March 3rd yet, is it? I can't wait for March 3rd. I mean, we'll be talking NFL free agency, which will be another hot topic on the table. Hector, thanks for joining us. You got an opinion?
Just a quick shout out is I remember you always said that Telesco, when he was the general manager, was generally conservative and wouldn't trade draft picks. But now they got a new GM with Vegas, so maybe they will deal up.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. New ideas. And Pete Carroll's a pretty aggressive guy. And obviously Spycheck, who came from Tampa, had been with the Lions for a long period. He's got a nice track record of acquisitions. I mean, what they built in Tampa around Baker Mayfield was because of Spycheck. And Tampa's pretty bloody good football team right now. So Raider football is going to be fun going forward. I mean, I love the NFL. I love the NFL offseason. It's pretty cool too.
There are no down days in the world of sports anymore.
Not with me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize in advance. I am who I am.
You're just bursting at the seams. No matter what season it is.
We move on.
Let's talk a little more Seattle here. This is with PE for Life. He says, Lee, as a past Seattle announcer, are you irate as I am about the excuses the Mariners make to not sign hitters year after year?
Well, it's a bit of an issue, but it's a bit of an ownership issue. And then I think it's a byproduct of the luxury tax, et cetera. They have fabulous pitching. My goodness, their top four starters they're horses. They're really good. Did they need to go get more bats? Yeah, and they finally did right at the tail end. I am a little surprised they did not bring Justin Turner, the ex-Dodger, back because he's a settling presence in that clubhouse. A lot of young guys. They had some injury problems with some of those young guys last year. But when you got cornerstone pitching, I mean, every one of those guys, I think, made 30 starts last season, and they had no injury problems. That's a pretty good foundation to have. DePoto is a wheeler dealer as a general manager, and he does make trades. He does take gambles along the way. So, yeah, I think people have really been let down about the potential of the Mariners, but sometimes your payroll's your payroll, and your marketplace is your marketplace, and maybe you just can't financially go way over that luxury tax threshold to try to take a gamble and make a move. Boy, the young pitching is really good, and they've held on to all of it.
They have, yeah. And they had Ty France, remember him?
Sure.
And he's kind of roaming around out there, I think, as a free agent.
He just signed.
Oh, he did?
I'm trying to remember. He just signed the other night. Yeah, he's going somewhere as a first baseman, third baseman, DH.
Okay. And then the Mariners have Randy Arozarena, I think.
Right.
And they picked him up in the trade last time.
At the deadline, they just signed him to an extension.
And they got Julio Rodriguez there. I mean, so who are some of the other hitters that are there? I'm kind of going blank on some of the other names
I got too many names. Yeah, they got great pitching. They needed to add bats because Rodriguez was kind of a man by himself standing on the street corner. And they had a bunch of injuries too, and they're going to get most of those guys back. J.P. Crawford, some of those other guys.
Do you miss your time in Seattle?
I liked it. I think Seattle is so much fun. Rain notwithstanding, but rain doesn't bother me.
Well, you're got the REI gear on right now.
It's raining like hell. It's like Seattle, Tacoma outside. No, I really like Seattle. So I like the Pacific Northwest. I love the state of Washington, love the state of Oregon. And I think it's the second best place on the West Coast to live outside of America's finest city when it's not raining or when we don't have fires and earthquakes.
Yeah, exactly.
On we go.
Okay, let's go here to John. He says, hey, it's a shame that the Angels didn't get the Tony Two Bags that was beloved in D.C.
He's talking about Rendon's nickname.
Yeah, and he says, I hated to see the Nationals lose him, but in hindsight, it was the best. Nats GM had to make a choice between Rendon and then World Series MVP Steven Strasburg, and in the end, neither were worth the contracts they got.
Yeah, it was tragic, but that's what happens to pitchers. Pitchers break down, and Strasburg just had so many physical problems after he got them to the World Series. And Rendon was not a bad guy in Washington. I mean, he was just a grinder. And he got to Anaheim, and he just kept getting hurt. And some people want to paint Rendon as a bum. I don't paint him that way because he got hurt playing for you. And he tried really hard. And he's had all these different injuries. But at the end of the day, he's making so much money, and he can't stay on the field. And then he complicated it by really saying something stupid last year in the face of all this adversity. Well, baseball is not the most important thing in my life. My family is. Well, you may feel that way, but you're making so much money and you've not been able to repay the owner for the contracts he gave you. And now this hip surgery came out of nowhere. It's just a bad set of circumstances. I don't think he's a bad dude. He just has had a lot of bad luck. It's different from the contract they gave Josh Hamilton, which was stupid considering his track record of drug relapses, and the contract they gave up Justin Upton and Vernon Wells, who I just thought were bad citizens and didn't work real hard. So Arte Moreno's just had a real tough time. The Athletic just did a national survey of Angel fans.
Mm-hmm.
96% of the people who voted in this Athletic website survey said Arte Moreno should sell the franchise. 90% said they have no confidence in Arte Moreno's leadership of the franchise. But that's a crummy way to go into spring training when everybody's supposed to be excited about the start of the Cactus League and the Grapefruit Circuit.
Well, yeah, I mean, fans have been calling for him to sell the team. And yeah, there has been a lot of bad luck in Anaheim. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can make a long list of that. But you know what? Rendon, I'll call him. He's a bum. I mean, just on the basis of getting in an argument with a fan in spring training a year or two ago.
And the stupidity of what he said last season.
Yeah, like I don't love playing baseball. You're like, come on, man. We'd all kill to have your job. And I'll tell you what, when he was there with the Nationals with Soto and Strasburg and that great run they had, Bryce Harper, I really liked him as a player. I think he was like a number 5 batter, and he was getting like lots of extra base hits.
He came out of LSU. He was a really good player, and he got hurt, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy since. Isn't it something? All those guys they stockpiled, and there's not one of them left in baseball. I mean, Harper's in Philadelphia, and might be even a Hall of Fame guy, but Strasburg's gone, and Rendon is gone. They had Soto's obviously forced his way out. They had another young guy, Victor Robles, who was
Trey Turner,
but he's gone because that was free agency. But at one point, they had all these cornerstone young guys collectively at the same time, and now none of them are in Washington.
Well, I remember they had back-to-back years with the number 1 overall pick, and one year it was Strasburg, next year it was Harper.
Yeah, and then Rendon came very high on the draft, and good run, but those things don't last forever, especially if guys get hurt.
Yeah, and just as an aside, I wish the Washington team would have picked a different name. It's Nationals, and you're in the National League, and it's just kind of a blah name.
Yeah, I thought it would have been the Senators again for the third time because there's a lot of history. Not a lot of it's great history, but Washington Senators has been their but I'm old school. So what can I say?
Okay.
All right, let's move on.
Moving on. Okay, let's go here to Angel, talking about the Angels. With Angels finding their closer and a couple of great arms, they won't make the playoffs, but with a healthy lineup, I see them at best 76 and 86.
Well, based on the number of guys they've dragged in, I don't think they're going to lose 99 games this season. No, but they have to get answers. I mean, they've got young guys. Can they keep the young guys on the field healthy? Not having Zach Neto, the young shortstop, who I think might be a star in the making. He's coming off shoulder surgery, is a bit of an issue. They need answers from their pitchers. A couple of years ago, Reed Detmers looked like a number one guy. And then he had arm problems. They went to the minor leagues. He couldn't get anybody out. It was kind of stunning. They brought him back at the end of last season from AAA, and he pitched a little bit better, but he doesn't seem to be the same guy that he was before. And Sandoval's gone. He's had injury problems. And I feel like I should raise my hand. Let's put a moratorium on criticism of the Angels and Artie Moreno, and let's just see what the collection of guys turns out to be that they brought in. Because getting Kenley Jansen, that's a credibility move.
For sure.
I like the acquisition of Kyle Hendricks because he was really good before he had these shoulder woes with the Cubs at Wrigley Field. Moncada was a hot prospect till he got hurt. So maybe he'll be different now that he's healthy than he was at the tail end with the White Sox. But at one time, he was just so hot as a Red Sox prospect. So I don't know, maybe we call timeout on criticism of Artie Moreno and John Carpino and just let's see what this collection of guys that they put together turns out to be. Because they spent early in free agency. They got, I call them trusted veterans, not stars, trusted veterans that have played the majors and had some success. And now that they've added some really interesting names here right at the end. So maybe we just back away a little bit and just see if Ron Washington can bring this thing back together. He's got a better team on paper right now, I'll guarantee you, than he had that went 63-99 last season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's reasonable to kind of take a step back because they're making the investment. They're trying, where in the past you didn't really understand the strategy. But what's up with our San Diego guy, Mickey Moniak? Isn't he like some arbitration dispute?
Yeah, well, he was in arbitration. That's been solved. They've got all these young outfielders who quite never got there. Moniak was a high number one pick.
He was number one overall.
And Joe Adell was a high number one pick. He had injury problems. Moniak has had one or two decent seasons. And Odell, he hit 20-plus home runs last season. His batting average is still like 206. He's gotten to be a much better defensive player. He's still there. So if they're going to stay with those guys, because you got to have a 25-man roster, but those guys are more at the bottom of the roster than they are anywhere else. So they need more kids from the farm system to come, but the farm system has been rushed to the front. Most all the good young kids are up there right now. They do have a couple pitchers. There's a pitcher by the name of Caden Dana who might crack that rotation this season. But they got so many question marks around this team, but at least they have numbers for Ron Washington to choose from compared to the numbers he didn't have last year.
Yeah. Some of the names on that list, like Tim Anderson, I don't have a lot of confidence. I'm hoping for the best, but it's nice to see him still in the league.
Well, they're giving trials to guys who once upon a time were pretty good, then had problems.
Yeah.
We'll see if these guys can bounce back. Okay, thanks for joining us, Angel.
Okay, let's talk some Dodgers baseball with Emmanuel. He says, Roki Sasaki isn't starting game 2. He most likely will start the exhibition game before opening day.
Well, Dave Roberts indicated that he was thinking that Yamamoto and Sasaki would be starters in 1 and 2 versus the Cubs. Now, again, that's 6 weeks down the road. A lot of things are going to change. Somebody develops a blister in spring training, well, then maybe he won't be in the starting rotation to start the season. I mean, there's a lot of things, but this was Dave Roberts speaking on the first day at Camelback Ranch of his theory of what they would do with the rotation. So as of yesterday, that was the comment. Those things could change a week from today or 4 weeks from today, but can't wait for opening day. It is going to be so electric in Japan with the entourage of stars that are coming from the Dodgers and Cubs to play in their home country. Going to be cool.
Are they going to do it like last year where they start like a week and a half before the regular season?
Yes.
So they go out there, they fly back to spring training.
And they take a break, and then the season will start for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense.
So
I love it. I think the international game is great. Okay, let's keep moving here. Let's go to Tim and talking about the Padres. He says, this Pivetta deal and the KBO put Hart could mean that the Padres push to trade Cease and or King.
At this point, AJ Preller says no. He says that he believes in the rotation that they've now stockpiled. He said, and he told me last week, as I talked to him directly, we don't have to make a trade. We can start the season with what we have, regardless of what they're earning. Of course, they're going to be paying big payroll on the 1st and 15th of every month if they keep everybody intact. And again, the luxury tax is not configured till October 1st. They don't have to deal anybody yet. Pivetta will be a back of the rotation guy at number 4. That's rock solid. The pitcher who just came from Korea, Kyle Hart, he's got to prove he can pitch at the major league level. I mean, he was a fringe prospect with the Red Sox who just never figured it out. And he went to Korea last season, and he took a whole step back about his regimen, about his mechanics, and he dominated. However, I warn you, Korea is maybe AAA baseball, more AA baseball at its best. So I don't know at this point whether Kyle Hart configures to be a starting pitcher for the Padres or maybe being a starting pitcher in El Paso. He'll get an opportunity to just show his stuff as a left-hander. But this is where the Padres are right now. They got a lot of arms, and now they got a lot of arms that don't have to prove themselves. You know, a week ago this time, we were freaking out. If you have to trade Cease, now you're down one more man in the rotation with Cease and Musgrove gone. And now all of a sudden they got Pivetta. Now you got a rock solid 4. The general manager says, I believe in this front 4. We're staying with this front 4. We don't have to move anybody. So now the dialogue is, who the hell's going to be the 5th guy? Is it going to be Waldron? Is it going to be Vasquez? Is it going to be Brito? What about the guy we're pulling out of the bullpen and maybe flipping him and extending him, Stephen Kolek? Let him be a starter. He'll compete. So now instead of being freaking out about starters 3, 4, and 5, we're just having a debate about who's the number 5 guy. And then, by the way, you got the whole bloody bullpen. And by indicating we have to trade a pitcher, he also said we don't have to trade Robert Suarez right now. Again, they don't need, from a budget standpoint, to do it right now. Later in the season, maybe they do it, or maybe they don't do it at all, and they just write a luxury tax check at the end, although I don't think that ownership wants to do that.
AJ Preller is still cooking.
He always is.
Yeah.
The dude never sleeps. They go to spring training, and he's on the phone all hours of the night. He's doing this deal to get this kid out of Korea at, 3 o'clock in the morning, Arizona time, which I don't know what the time is in Korea, to get Kyle Hart, who at one point was a really high draft pick out of college, went to the Red Sox, but just never quite made it, and then was out in the street and reinvented himself over there. And by the way, AJ's history abroad, Hassan Kim.
Yeah.
Nick Martinez, Robert Suarez,
right?
Luis Garcia. I mean, this guy's done some unique things of reaching for people because he had boots on the ground there that said, this guy, we can make an establishment. And he's done it, 4 or 5 times.
But I think there's still more deals coming, don't you?
Yeah, but at this point, Arise, you're going to trade Arise. At this point, I don't think they want to. They want to trade Cease.
They got Dylan Cease like right before they left for Korea last year.
But that was out of necessity and need. Now he's just made the last minute deal for Pivetta. I don't think there's a need to make another transaction. I think rotation is rock solid. Bullpen is really deep. And you open the season with the committee in left field and the rest of the batting order being there.
Well, first base DH is still a little bit open, isn't it?
That's why you got guys. Let's just see what happens.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for the input, Tim.
Okay. And here's another comment about the Padres from Rick. And he goes, I'm no Padre fan, but why haven't they brought back David Peralta?
It just may be price tag. You know, maybe he doesn't want to sign for $1.5 million. You know, every one of those guys that they just signed for $1 to $1.5 million. And Peralta's a vested veteran. I'm a little bit surprised that Jason Hayward would sign for $1 million, but he's in the twilight of his career and he just wants to play and he wants to be on a winner. And there's quite a track record of success for him as a player for the most part and as a clubhouse leader. He's a very strong persona. I interviewed him multiple times. He'd tell you what he thought, which is kind of cool. And there was no public coach speak from Jason Hayward. And the Dodgers, even though he hit 211, he didn't play very well. The Dodgers really liked him as a stabilizer and a veteran influence in the clubhouse. So you bring these guys in. I'm surprised Peralta's not been signed yet, but then again, he's a vested veteran. A certain amount of money you got to pay guys who've been in the league 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. You got to pay them. That's a union part of the agreement. You got to pay them a certain amount of money. So That's where we are.
Okay, I'm going to share a story that is completely unverified that I saw on social media about Peralta, and he was on Twitch, which is like a social media, but for a lot of gamers go there. And they asked him, he goes, "Hey man, loved you with the Padres. Are you coming back to San Diego?" And he said, "No, I'm not." So he must have gotten the message, from the front office. But I think Jason Hayward is the replacement for Peralta. They're very similar.
Exactly, and he can play left, and historically, Jason Hayward's played in right. And Hayward has done some good things as a pinch hitter, and his value inside that clubhouse. He's a stand-up, strong-willed guy, a good guy. So, yeah, he's kind of replaced Peralta as left-handed bat. We'll just see, and things change. If he can't hit and he can't get around on pitches, then he probably gets released. And if Peralta's still out there, because Peralta wasn't playing opening day last season, maybe they bring him back. Anything is possible.
One of these guys might turn into Nelson Cruz or Matt Carpenter and just hit the wall, right?
Exactly. Okay, we move on. A couple more here.
Okay, a couple more. And here's Javi, Dodger fan, peacocking around. Padres turning into the Expendables. Hilarious. Makes us knocking them out last year all the sweeter.
But that was last year, and I can't wait for opening day when the Padres play the Dodgers in the first game of the rivalry. We'll just see where it goes. I think, in all honesty, Javi, though, let's be truthful. Padres are a lot better now with Pivetta coming in the front door. Their 4 is pretty damn good. Now, maybe it's not the Dodger 4-man rotation. Maybe it's as close to the Phillies, because I think the Phillies might have the second best rotation. So we got a lot of baseball to play, but I can't wait. I mean, Javi's probably the kind of guy that's calling the Dodgers and say, "Hey, that first game the Padres play, why don't you just put up there on the scoreboard, 'We welcome San Diego Padre players and fans to Dodger Stadium,' and then flash up your World Series ring right there on the scoreboard for everybody to see." Just need to stoke the rivalry a little bit more.
Yeah, I love the trolling. I mean, I really do. And these front offices, they think they're taking the high road, but there's still some zingers in there. Some are more subtle than others. I love Javi kind of still going off on the rivalry. The rivalry is what makes sports fun.
Sure.
The Dodgers do everything right. They're perfect. And they've got everything. They got all the great players, all the stars, no controversies, nothing. It's beautiful. But it's still, like you say, I'm looking forward to opening day. And here's a chance for, the scrappy kid in San Diego to maybe has a shot to knock off the Dodgers.
Statements. Somebody can make a statement. They're going to play 13 times this season, so we'll just see where it goes. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, move on. We'll talk a little more NHL here. This is with Callan. He says, "Afternoon, gents. Lee, what an electrifying start to the Four Nations tournament. Sucks to hear about Shea Theodore getting injured, but damn, this tournament is already fun. Let's go Team USA."
As I said, say goodnight. NHL All-Star Game, we don't need it. Let's just replace it with a global tournament and configure it so that we can allow all the great players globally to play, because this thing is refined to Team USA, Canada, Sweden, and Finland. I'd like to see a Team Europe. I'd like to see the Russians be allowed to participate in this tournament, the Ovechkins of the world, etc. Despite what Putin has done, don't penalize the athlete as an innocent victim here. Let them participate. So I'd like to see them expand this thing. And the other factor, nobody's talked extensively about it, is the NHL has now cleared to send its players to the Olympics. They're going back to the Winter Olympics. Tough break for Shea Theodore. I think it's a shoulder injury. He's a Las Vegas defenseman. Actually, he used to be here. He used to be with the San Diego Gulls and went to Anaheim and then got traded. And he's a really good player, and he's making a lot of money on a big multi-year contract, but he got a shoulder injury in game 1. And I think they were talking that he's going to be gone 4 to 8 weeks. It was a bit of a blow for Las Vegas. This tournament's been, at least the first game in Montreal was amazing. And we got Team USA versus Finland tonight.
Awesome. I want to actually watch these games. I didn't see the first one, but I'm intrigued. But meanwhile, right now in social media, some of these guys are arguing about who's in Scandinavia. Go here to just a quick one to Kier. He goes, "Finland isn't part of Scandinavia."
Geographically, yes, it is.
It's kind of more connected. Well, it shares the border with Russia.
Exactly.
And then David here goes on. He says, "Yeah, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Denmark, and the Faroe Islands are all part of Scandinavia."
Just call it Team Scandinavia. You involve all these players from that segment of the globe, just like you invoke and call it Team Europe, and you can take players from Germany and France and add them to the block of countries that used to be the USSR. There's so many great players that are in the NHL who are from Ukraine and from the old Soviet Union. Make that Team Europe, and then you have Team USA, Team Canada. I think the global tournament, it'd be a hell of a tournament.
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, it'd be terrific.
Why am I not commissioner of all things NHL?
You are the franchise.
That's right.
We need to make a phone call. All right, let's just another shout out more on the rivalry. This is from NS. He goes, Dodgers are trolling the Padres on their giveaways. The Snell bobblehead, the replica World Series trophy, and the Gold Series jersey.
I just love it. Just everything's about marketing. It's absolutely hilarious what's going on. It's going to be decided on the field, but it's great. It's great that we have a rivalry. And I tend to think based on what has just happened, you know, Jerks and Profar robbing that home run ball and then standing out there in left field, jumping up and down at Dodger fans. I think that was so great for the rivalry. It's taken the rivalry to a much higher level. Padres obviously owe the Dodgers one now because the Padres choked away that playoff series against the Dodgers. So that's in the back of their mind. That's going to eat at them until they prove differently.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Roberts and Mookie Betts have all come out and said, there's electric at Petco. So that for them as players, they understand the rivalry and they value it. But speaking of the Dodgers, have you seen the pictures of Dodger Stadium where they're renovating the clubhouses and they've like dug these deep holes under the dugouts?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious to see how that sorts out.
They got the resources and they're doing things, they're reinvesting in the ancient stadium like they're reinvesting in the roster. They've got the bank to be able to do that.
I will say this is at Dodger Stadium, if you're like in the second deck and you're kind of behind the seats in the concourse area, it still feels like an old stadium, like really low ceilings and the concrete bricks everywhere. But what a beautiful location that is. I'm surprised they haven't rebuilt it at any point.
Well, they've renovated it multiple times, but to have a complete tear down, where's your team going to play if you're going to tear it down? And then secondly, that's unbelievably costly. I mean, we start talking about.
But yeah, it's the Dodgers, and that's like one of the oldest stadiums in baseball, maybe the third oldest.
Yeah, between Wrigley Field and Fenway.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Okay, let's move to social media. I'm sure we got somebody's got an opinion. Oh, I bet we do.
Oh, we do. Okay, let's go down here and we'll talk about the Chiefs. He goes, because America hates winners. They hated Tom Brady all these years. Kansas City is a lot more tolerable than those scumbag Eagle fans.
Well, that's the Eagle fans. Let's just talk about the organizations. I think two of the best organizations we've seen in modern day NFL football. If I canvass general managers, they would probably say off the record, out of respect, what a hell of a job they've done in roster building in Philadelphia and in Kansas City. We broke it down going into the Super Bowl. Philadelphia, I think, had 15 of the 22 starters or their own draft picks. Kansas City had 14 of their 22. That's an amazing accomplishment. And what few free agents that have come on board have really been difference makers. I mean, led by Saquon Barkley, obviously, with the Giants who went to Philadelphia. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, the rental of all those veteran free agents, whether short-term contracts, one-year deals, has really, really panned out. At the end of the day, Kansas City deserved it. It's really hard to keep your team together on a year-by-year basis and have that kind of success. And Philadelphia's been building towards this and they've arrived. Doesn't mean they're going to own it going forward. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Detroit comes back totally healthy. And I'm still a firm believer in a lot of things San Francisco 49er football is all about. And then obviously you got Baltimore, which has got to learn to win in postseason playoff time. There's still some really elite teams in the upper echelon of the AFC and the NFC.
Conrad brings up a good point, though. America hates winners, and
or gets tired of it.
Yeah, but still, we talked about hatred of the good for being good. I mean, it's just, that's a thing in sports, probably because we're in grudge mode and it's rivalry. But normally in America, we celebrate greatness. And, my tune has totally changed on this. I was tired of the Patriots. I was tired of the Lakers, and I was tired of the Chiefs. But then suddenly I flipped and I was rooting for the three-peat.
Oh, you wanted to see what Taylor Swift was wearing. Come on, let's be honest.
Okay.
We move on.
Okay, let's go here to Chillin' Cease. Goes, Hacksaw, can't wait for the annual mid-season retraction. You crapped on Preller so much, but after the past few seasons, I think he's earned the benefit of the doubt. You buried him and the team before the 2024 season, and you were incredibly wrong. You'll be wrong again this year, so I'm bookmarking this to link in the comments of your mid-July retraction video.
You are hereby mandated to watch us every Monday and every Thursday. Let's be honest, though, here. In Preller's 9 years, has your ass been to a World Series yet? No. Have they gotten themselves in huge financial holes because of the contracts and the way he operated the team and the money he spent on kids that they traded away? Yes. So it's not a complete story yet. I give him credit. He's bold. He has no fear of making deals. He's never been held accountable by ownership. This has been a pretty long run without getting to more than just the playoffs, but they've done well. But they've also choked it away a couple times. I mean, they've had some bad endings. Over the last 4 years, they had one real substandard season, and then this 24 shutout inning stretch in the playoffs last year. And that's tough to swallow, tough to accept. So I hate to dump on you, but these are the facts. These are my opinions off the facts. Accept it if you will. If you don't want it, that's okay. Let's just be realistic. You haven't been to a World Series yet, and that has been the sales pitch forever and ever with A.J. Preller. So let's see if this is the year they flip it. But he's got no fear. He doesn't give a damn about what I think, what you think, etc. He just go make his deals, and we'll go on. And somewhere along the line, do have to win. Somewhere along the line is going to be held accountable. But he's a baseball guy. That's all he does every minute of every day of his life. He's one of the most unique people I've ever crossed paths with.
You're sometimes all over the place on this because you were criticizing Preller and Chill and Cease, which by the way I like that handle, was right. You were kind of down on him, but then later in the season you thought AJ Preller should have been Major League Executive of the Year.
This thing really came together, but that's because it was bold. But there's also a price to pay. He's traded the farm system away 3 times. They're way over budget. The amount of money he's burned through, I don't know very many other owners that would allow their general manager to do what he did financially and never have success. And he didn't have success up until about 3 or 4 years ago where the product got really good. And at the end of the day, their window to do this, John, is like this.
Yeah.
Because they got age, and now you got big money tied up going forward and no farm system because he used that as chips to make trades to get veteran players that gave big contracts too. So it should have happened last year, very close to happening last year. Kind of got to have that happen this year or maybe next year.
Yeah, well, you figure Machado is kind of getting a little longer in the tooth.
Sure.
And same with Darvish. And so, yeah, you got to win now. But, Preller, I love the swashbuckling, making the deals, trying hard. Because remember before, Kevin Towers had his arms tied behind his back. He wasn't allowed to do anything. Preller is pushing for a championship as a San Diego fan. I'm thrilled by that.
Well, Petco Park is a destination point. It is so much fun to go down there, not just to be in the Gaslamp quarter, but just to be down there as a guy sitting in the press box to observe all this, then a guy taking his wife to games and sitting in section 310 along the first base line. That is such a cool experience. But I hope our community gets a chance to really experience a World Series with the way these guys are doing their business. But please don't hold it against the host because he puts topics on the table with a lot of facts and then he has opinions. That's what we do. Hey, chillin'. If you had your own podcast, you're sitting in this chair, you'd probably be doing the same thing.
One man's opinion. Okay.
Right.
Okay, let's talk a little football because you were hinting about the Rams maybe trading Matthew Stafford. Now, this is Conrad again. He goes, Stafford isn't going anywhere. Rams know they can win another Super Bowl with him.
I never thought they were going to trade Stafford. That was the national media that kind of floated that story, but Matthew had not decided whether he wanted to play again, and there's a lot of wear and tear. He's 37 going on 38, and he's had a lot of injuries. He's the heart and soul of everything that's happening there. McVay is the brains, but Matthew Stafford is the leader and the heart and soul. I hate to see them walk away from Cooper Kupp, but you can't have a guy with a $29 million cap figure at age 32. They're going to have to do something there. But the season they had, that was really impressive. That was McVay just coaching them up, and they got progressively better and better as the season wore on. So Stafford plays another year. They're going to have to go get another wide receiver if indeed they move Cooper Kupp. I like Kupp. I hope the Chargers get access to Kupp. Has to be at a different price tag though. But this will be fun to watch to see because they're gonna make a few changes, not a lot of changes there.
Didn't Jared Verse win that award for
Yes.
Rookie of the Year or
Exactly.
Defensive Rookie of the Year?
Defensive Rookie of the Year. And we talked about him and Fisk the day of the draft. You and I said, you watch these two. And what these guys do? I told you so. I know what I know, and it's a hell of a lot.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go here. Another Padre comment, and this is more Dodger fans, what's this guy's name? Vicky Me? He goes, I ask you honestly, Lee, what is the problem with professional sports ownership in this town? Pretty sure I'll never see a championship of any kind in this city.
Well, that's a bit of a reach. The football franchise here, First Family Football, the Spanos, as they called themselves absurdly. They had 16 winning seasons in like 33 years. And then they vacated and moved. Baseball's gone through some good stretches. The Kroc ownership had good stretches. Obviously, John Morsley, Rilicchino, a good odd year or two. And now Peter Seidler's enormous efforts to put this thing into a status where they might be a World Series team. But we're no different than a lot of other places. Can you please tell me when, and again, I used to work in Cleveland. When was the last time Cleveland won anything in football? 1964?
Yeah, in football.
When was the last time my Cleveland Indians won anything?
You have to go to the Cavaliers. I mean, that's when they finally won something.
More recently.
Yeah.
But it's not easy to win. Now, outside of Laker basketball, Dodger baseball, has anybody else in LA won anything? I mean, the LA Kings won the Stanley Cup one time there, but
Angels won the World Series about 20 years ago or so, right?
One time.
That was the Thunderstruck.
It's just really, really tough to get there and stay there. So good organizations, great organizations are few and far between. I don't think it's just a San Diego thing. It's a lot of different places.
Well, San Diego as a sports town, we have a curse. Okay. And one of the categories of the curse is the lack of champions. But I'll tell you what, when the Padres, they made the World Series twice, the Chargers got the Super Bowl once, and those are big moments in town. But for me, the most amazing opportunity for a national championship was San Diego State basketball a couple of years ago. That to me was odds defying that would never have happened in a million years, and it did.
Yeah, and the 30-2 team never got to the NCAA tournament, and that was by virtue of COVID, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that program has been really good for a really long time, and they've gotten close, and they got to the championship game one time and should have probably been a big-time tournament team on the 30-2 season that they never got the chance to play because the whole thing got canceled.
Yeah, Malachi Flynn and who are the other guys? The guy from New Zealand, and I'm blanking on their names, but I remember the one kid came from Santa Clara. And they were all wanted to come here just to win because they had never made the tournament. And they were on a team that was winning. It was going to make the tournament and likely be a number one seed. And everything just went off the cliff.
Yeah. So that's where we are.
It was awful.
We'll keep on trying. We'll keep on covering it. We will be talking about it nonstop. Let's do a couple more here.
Okay. Here's our last social media one. This might be a little dangerous here. We're going to talk a little Trump. And this is from DMM Second. He goes, great job, Hacksaw. Love your show and have a ton of respect for you. Not to be afraid to call out that man's BS. Again, love the show. Keep up the great work.
I'm not sure who he referenced. I was calling out BS on somebody, but I do
on
that.
Trump.
Oh, I did? Okay, I do that.
That was
often.
After the plane crashes a few weeks ago.
I have a right to my opinion. It's called First Amendment. Even though, did you see this week? He expelled Washington Post, Associated Press, I think 4 different news organizations from their seats in the White House press office, expelled them because they expressed opinions that shouldn't be the Gulf of America. It's the Gulf of Mexico. He expelled them. Do you people who voted for that guy think you're going to like this dictatorship? Because I think it's going to be a really bad 4 years for our country.
Yeah, it's wild. It's been a wild 3 weeks, and I think we're going to be on the edge of our seat for the next 4 years.
Terrible. It's terrible. But hey, America, you voted for this. This is what you got. Hope you enjoy it. We're all going to have to suffer for it, but things will change. Things always do change.
They do.
This podcast is